Hey guys, I'm here to do a full review of the Wysocki Raptor destroyers. These have been out for a little while now, and I even talked about them a little bit in that last destroyer video I had out. A little bit of the information I'm going to go over in this video will overlap with that, the secret to finding the right destroyer. I'm taking it a little bit of a different direction in this video. This is just specifically about the Ricky destroyers, and I'm really looking forward to this being the first in a series of review videos. I'm built quite a bit of data on this. I've been working on it for quite a while, and hopefully the same layout I've got for this review video I'll be able to continue to use for DD3s, Forces, Kongs, on and on. There's all kinds of other competitors in that 12-13 speed range. A lot of other discs that are fighting and fly pretty closely to these destroyers. So I've got a pretty big test stack next to me here. This is actually 19. This green one's brand new. It wasn't included in the batch that I did use for testing. It's a new addition. I'll tell you a little bit more about that once we get a little bit later into the video. This is the test set we're looking at right now. It reads like a book, top left to bottom right. The top left is the most understable, and these are all laid out becoming more stable each row left to right. Coming down to this one, this is the most stable of them all. Now, what I did to decide the stability on all of these was first to measure the gap on the wing. And if you've watched that last destroyer video, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, hold on, I'll show you a picture a little bit later on that shows this. The flight chart that I've drawn here is custom. I did this myself, and this reflects exactly what these discs do for me. When I'm throwing them optimally, getting a good rip on them, for me that's arm speed of 60 to 65 miles per hour, and I'm a little bit of a hyzer flip guy, so they're usually coming out on a slight hyzer for me. That's where I get the most power, and I'm up at 4,500 feet elevation. With those factors in mind, that arm speed, that elevation, that release angle, this is how the discs fly for me. The main factor in their stability is that gap on the bottom of the wing. The most overstable being at 0.64, that's a pretty big gap, and then the most understable are flat. The second most important factor that contributes to stability is the height of the dome. The more dome that we get on a destroyer, the more overstable it becomes. That one has a secondary effect though. It gives you glide. So I have found that the most domey destroyers I can find with the most understable bottom wing is like the perfect destroyer for me. And those tend to sit right in this 17 millimeter range on the depth of the wing. And then I get a pretty tall dome. Look at the dome on these, 17.3, 17.6. This is why these two discs made it into my test. These are, in particular, this blue one is my main thrower right now. And the red one's a backup for it. It's pretty close. That red one's a little bit lighter. That also, of course, as we know, lighter weight disc contributes to beating in a little faster, flying a little bit less understable. Potentially, for the same arm speed, you get a higher velocity of the disc in flight. I have videos showing each of these flight patterns, and in those videos, I've written down what the distance is that each disc flies, so that you can see that. Now, that first picture that I showed you, the main test group, I went ahead and blacked them out, the ones I didn't use. So this shows you in the stability range which ones actually made it onto the graph, this one being the most understable. These are the two with that taller dome. Some of these other blacked out are less stable than these, so technically with that extra turn they'll go a little further. The problem is that with that flatter top, and I get some turn on it, the disc kind of just wants to set down. These that I'm finding with the super high dome, if I can get a really domey destroyer to turn, it stays up in the air so much longer. I get some really sweet distance on more of golf shots, not huge flexing shots where I need a really wide fairway. These go really far in a relatively straight line. And then on the overstable end of the spectrum, I kind of just picked 3. It honestly doesn't matter. For my arm speed, I can't show a whole bunch of difference in like this whole row to this row. They just do about the same thing for me. I'd need another 5 to maybe 10 miles an hour arm speed, and or just get to lower elevation, and then maybe I'd start to get some different flights on those. But I just don't have the juice in my arm to make that happen, to really show the difference. So let's jump right in and check out that video of them flying. I put that graph here at the beginning. So I'll tell you a little bit about where I'm throwing. It was a little bit of a left to right wind, but it wasn't doing a whole lot for me. There is a slight elevation drop. You can see like a little ravine right here. So once we get out to like this tree in particular, that's around 400 feet, we've probably gone down 20 feet in elevation, something like that. This being one of the most overstable discs, I'm trying to get them out on a little bit of an anhyzer, this one as well. You can tell it's slight ante on release. I'm actually getting some off-axis torque on them as well. And, they're just flying straight for a little bit and then dumping super hard out in the mid-300s. The next one coming up, this 4th one, is the Blue Destroyer. It's one of my main throwers, and I got it out on just a slight ante release. And look how long it holds that. It just glides so far before dumping down. And that's an extra 60 feet of difference. That was over 400. This one, I corrected and got it out on a hyzer. You can see, let's see if I can't get that release point. Yeah, right there. So you can see how much hyzer I put this disc out on. And that's because I know there's really a pretty good chunk of difference in stability between this red one and the blue one. The fact that this is 162 grams really makes a difference. So I ripped it out on a hyzer, and it goes out there really far before starting to turn right. And then it still does fight back at the end, 438 feet. And then the last one here, it's a little unfortunate. It was maybe a flat release. It's kind of hard to tell from that picture right there. Let's see if I can get it to freeze in a different spot. Okay, that actually looks like maybe gentle hyzer. Maybe it had some off-axis torque. I've stopped that video in a few times and looked at it, but it does not make it far out of my hand at all before it just starts to turn, and it pretty much doesn't come back. But it's a crush, that's pushing 500 feet, of course, with the, some downhill in there and a little bit of a wind aid. But that's hardly a golf shot, right? I needed so much fairway to make that work. It is still a very useful disc for me. If there's a little bit of tailwind, if I am throwing a higher trajectory and want to kind of roll flat at the top, then I'm really loving that kind of salmon-colored Destroyer. It's in my bag. That salmon one and the salmon and the Blue Destroyer are both in my bag and have been for a while. I'm really liking those two discs. So let's take a quick look at the wing gap. If that's not something that you're familiar with, this is what I'm talking about. This is the most overstable disc, the most overstable Destroyer that I was throwing in that video, and this is the gap that we're looking at here, the deepest part of the wing, and that one is 0.64. And then let's look at that main blue, and of course this is when it was brand new, and I've just beat it up super bad right now. That's such a straighter wing, but we've still got a gap we can see in there. That one is 17 millimeters, just about the sweet spot for me. I love that so much. Then we'll pull up that salmon colored Destroyer. Now I have that listed as 0 millimeters on the flight chart, 0.0, but it's really a negative. You can see it actually bulges out. I found quite a few like this that bulge. I almost buy them on site because it's really, to some degree, it's what I need in order to really throw a Destroyer far. I have started to notice that when I'm finding those, one section of the wing may have that big bubbly bulge on it, but then if I start turning the wing and look at other sections, I'll find other spots that are much flatter. So that really seems to indicate maybe that they're cooled vertically to some degree, and we'll get some swelling or migration of plastic before it is set all the way from gravity. It doesn't seem to make too much of a difference. One thing I've noticed, if we're looking at trying to pick out just the right destroyer, I've mentioned a few variables, right? We're talking about the bottom of the wing, the height of the dome, and third is the weight of the disc. You can see that the weight from left to right across this graph isn't just perfect. Like this 100 and, the heavier discs for sure are on the left. But then when we come down here, it's 171, 162, and then back to 172. So it's not totally like you have to have a lighter weight disc to get one that has a flat wing. That just isn't the case. Now, I can tell you that there are some consistent factors in all these destroyers I've gone through. If we're looking at one that's 175 grams, that's probably going to be a flat to a subtle dome. And when I say flat, I don't mean like Firebird flat top. Some of those are just like ridiculously flat, like a lot of the Sexton Firebirds or whatever. That's not the kind of flat I'm talking about. But we will get a kind of a subtle dome on a bunch of those at 175. I'm going to say every single one that I found has a subtle dome. At max weight, the dome doesn't deviate. Also at max weight, the bottom of the wing doesn't seem to deviate a whole lot either. I'm seeing a lot from a 0.64 down to 0.5 or something, and those are all so overstable for me. I can't tell a difference in flight. I can't get them up to speed fast enough. Now, once we get down into the 172 to, all the way down to 160 range, when we're in that weight range is when we start to see a huge deviation in those qualities. Some of them are very flat, some of them are massively domey, and the wing varies just as much. So the most consistent destroyers are max weight, and that's also probably the destroyer that a very high number of disc golfers just shouldn't even be throwing, because they probably don't have the arm speed to handle it, other than it being a 12-speed Firebird, just like a full utility disc. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you are to find a lightweight disc with a massive pop top on it, then you're probably going to be in the 0.15 to 0.25 millimeter range on the bottom of the wing. That's what I've noticed as well. My test group isn't huge. I've got close to 20, and I've probably handled 4 times that many destroyers in stores and whatnot, just checking them out. I showed you the picture of the bottom of the wing. I'll also show you the picture of, if you're curious exactly how much this dome comes into play. Let me see, I need to switch over to full camera, and I know I'm going a little bit ghetto on my setup here, but I didn't have time to try to take good pictures to show off the dome. So this is that salmon color destroyer with the 0 millimeter wing, it was pinned at 170. I weighed it at 172 grams. And then I've also got this brand new one, the green one, which wasn't part of the test group, but I'm super excited about it. It has a 0 to maybe 10 millimeter wing, and it has just an absolute ridiculous dome on there. Look at the difference on the dome on those two discs. It's just crazy. Like, you can see on the salmon one, there's still kind of a shoulder, like right about there. It's my autofocus on my camera is driving me nuts. It just slightly raises, but then the disc continues to be flat. And you can see that same shoulder on the green right here, and it just ramps up once, and then even from that edge, it continues to get higher. That second tier is really rare. That, in my opinion, is what makes the disc qualify as pop top versus domey. Like, this is, let me grab This is Domi right here, that purple one. It's still got that, yeah, you can see the shoulder on it right here, sort of. I get my dark hair in the background. You can see the shoulder on it, but then it just tapers. It doesn't have this second tier of popping up. Like it's just, you can hear this thing pop. It's insane compared to the pop of just like a normal, somewhat Domi Rookie Destroyer. So one of the other qualities that I've noticed in these, a little bit older Wysocki destroyers that come out, which maybe were like honestly the same runs, pours, whatever you want to say, as the last Macbeths that came out, and they didn't have Macbeth stamps on them, so they got Wysocki stamps on them. They needed something to ship them out of the warehouse. Anyways, a lot of these had just the normal, what we're looking at is right here on the wing, and the lack of bubbles on this disc. And I have a bunch that lack the bubbles like that. And then, like, this is the one that makes it easiest to see the bubbles inside there. My autofocus isn't agreeing with me, but you can just see how the texture even changes there. Grip-wise, that doesn't bother me. I think that it makes the plastic slightly less durable. Like when you've got the striations in the plastic that those kind of air bubble streaks leave, you've got a weakness that can be torn when it hits an object. Like if you hit something hard, we can chunk star plastic without a doubt. I've got some pretty good nicks in this one here that I've been throwing a lot. If I hit something hard enough to make that nick, but do it with one of these discs that has a whole lot more bubbles in the rim, I think I'm going to have slightly more damage to the disc. And I have seen it on just a few of these that I throw. The Road Rash seems to be slightly worse, just because it can tear into the bubbles. But I don't know, it isn't the end of the world. To some degree, it might help that disc become break-in faster, so I'm not really seeing it as a disadvantage. If I find a disc that meets the criteria of how Domi I'm looking for and the angle on the bottom of the wing, then I'm not caring about bubbles at all. Or I have started noticing that some of these are coming out with light swirls in them. I don't know if you can make that out. This has just like a little bit of 2 or 3 colors of swirls in there. I think, yeah, this blue one, it's got a little bit of a darker blue across the top there, a little bit of brainy swirl in there. So that's kind of cool to see a little bit of swirl in some of these. So I mentioned that I'm hoping for this to be a series. I fully intend for it to be. And it's taken me way too long to get this far, trying to figure out what drone to get, trying to figure out a place to fly it. The weather hasn't cooperated. Now I'm dealing with a groin injury, which really sucks. All that footage you just watched, I was in a fair bit of pain, even trying to do those throws. And that might put me out for a few weeks. But I really had hoped I could get one of these videos out a month, something like that. You can see I've got, disc bearing towel hanging here. Those guys have really helped me out. Jacob has been great. He, somewhat understood the vision that I had, and it's evolved since, I last talked with him. But, he went out on a limb and really hooked me up with a bunch of plastic. I've got a ton of forces and Kongs. That's that whole stack you see right here is all forces, and that's actually not all of them. I got another stack over there. And what I want to do with all those discs is put them through the same testing that I just did with all these Wysocki destroyers and build flight charts for them, like my personal flight charts, what they do at my arm speed, at my elevation, and then put that flight chart right next to this one for destroyers. And I think what we're going to see is, well, for one thing, forces don't have the wing variation that these destroyers do. Forces do have massive difference in dome height, and that's the number one factor on those for stability. They're going to be sitting about right in the middle of this flight chart. They fly a lot more like the overstable destroyers do, but maybe a little more glide. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, and I haven't been throwing them quite enough yet to be able to say. And the Kongs are in there too. The flatter Kongs seem to be less stable, but then they also have less glide, so they'll set down. Anyways, I think it would be really cool to help a lot of people pick what disc to throw. It's crazy the amount of times you look on Reddit or Disc Golf Course Review, and you're looking through these forums and you hear people say, I just lost this disc and I'm looking for something to replace it, but I want to change brands. Or I've got a destroyer that I'm throwing and it does about this for me. I want a disc that has a little bit more turn. And people just throw out recommendations like crazy, and some of the most important factors are missed, and that is arm speed and release angle. Like, I think a lot of people are taking destroyers or any disc that is like these on the left side of my chart here that are just ridiculously hard to get any turn out of, and they're throwing them on massive anhyzer, and maybe they got 55 mile an hour arm speed, right? And you can get some decent distance out of that disc. But if you don't know that is the type of destroyer they're throwing there, and that's what their arm speed is, and that's what their release angle is, then it makes it almost impossible to give a good recommendation for what disc they maybe should move towards. And that's some of the information that I'm trying to get out there, and I think continuing to do graphs like this will help quite a bit. So go show Disc Baron some love. They've got a really sweet website up, and some of the best customer service that I found in the retail disc golf world. One of the things that I really like about their website is the individual pictures of each disc. Their weigh each disc, so they're not just telling you the pinned weight, and then they'll also give you a dome, a profile of the top plate. You're going to see that they're going to say it's flat, it's domey, or it's pop top. And that is huge. Like what I just explained earlier of the fact that the pop top, as I call them, those super high domey destroyers only exist, as far as I found so far, in the low teens to low 20s, whatever, 0.15 to 0.20 millimeters, something like that, is where you're going to get a pop-top destroyer. And I've never seen a pop-top destroyer with a really concave wing profile either. So you can pick up some of the clues that I've just described to look at the weight of the disc on Disc Baron and look at the dome profile, and you're going to have a really good idea of what kind of destroyer you're going to be shipped. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to shop for these things online because the destroyers vary so much. I keep a close look on Disc Baron. I like to sort by new. It's pretty cool to see all the new discs that they bring in. And I had a couple of the pop-top destroyers kind of bookmarked on their website. I wanted to get on and show you guys how I found those, but somebody has gotten wise and they're all gone now. So we'll have to wait till they get a restock on their Wysocki destroyers. But online, that's maybe one of the best places if you're really trying to narrow one of these down. If you can get to them in person, then that's really the best way to find the right destroyer is to get your hands on them. I got a little bonus for you guys at the end here. If you've made it this far, we are in mystery box season, and I'm seeing pictures of those things all over the place. So I have just showed up today a little mystery box of my own. I have been subscribed to the Wysocki Wysocki box monthly deal, whatever. I scratched my name off there so you guys won't be tempted to start shipping me discs. This one is their $50 package. They've got a $30, a $50, and a $75 box. And I've gotten a bunch of stuff. I don't know. I've been subscribed for a number of months now. I thought I'd show you some of the coolest stuff I've got so far. I putt with KC Pro AVRs, and I have for quite a while. This thing is just a beauty. Look at that. Look at that stamp on there. And you can see it's beat up. I'm not much to just, collect a bunch of discs. I really like to buy stuff to throw, and then if I ain't going to throw it, I'm probably going to try to, get rid of it and sell it. But it's so cool to get a disc like that. He really nailed it with that one. This is one of the more recent ones I got. This is a Champion Mako 3. I had no idea that I might like the Mako 3, and now I own a number of them after getting that one. They fly really sweet. This one I haven't thrown yet. This is a destroyer, and it has a really sweet pop top on there. 172 grams. It's right in that 0.17, maybe 0.20 or so millimeter wing. It's going to be a great thrower. I just haven't pulled it out yet. I've also got a Champion T-Bird 3. Haven't thrown that one yet. And this is one of the coolest ones. This is a Champion, almost luster looking. You can see, kind of the little shimmery streaks in there. Max weight, super flat top, Firebird. So those are some of the favorites I've got. I've gotten way more discs, but those are some of the coolest stamps and everything. Let's go ahead and rip this thing open and see what we got this month. I think these boxes are one of the coolest ways to be able to support a pro, Ooh, there's a shirt in here. Port Authority. Whoa, that's pretty sweet. That's large. That's my size too. The Wysocki Bomb logo on the front. This is a synthetic. It's a stretchy fabric. That's going to be great in the heat of the summer. Look at that. 2X World Champion Ricky Wysocki with the Wysocki Bomb pack of dynamite on there. Dang. This is going to help me blow up some courses. I can tell already. That's awesome. That's a winner right there. And then, ooh, what is this? Oh, nice. Bic, some notepads, sticky notes with the light Wysocki Bomb logo on there. I actually carry some of those around in my shirt pocket for work because I have to write notes constantly. I got 2 notepads in there. Those will definitely go to use. That's pretty cool. And I've got a couple magnets in here. Wysocki 2X World Champ. That's the Big Putt logo. I hoping to get a disc with that on it at some point. I seen them come up and almost just bought some off the website. I think that's pretty sweet. That basket's just exploding. 2 magnets. A Innova sticker. Champ Firebird. That's a cool color. That's kind of a, look at that. I want to say blueberry, but it's not. It's not quite that purple, but it's got that neat streak in the rim. 171, and that's not as flat as the that purple one I had. This has a nice settled dome to it. Very hard. This is Jolly Rancher is what this makes me want to say. Jolly Launcher, whatever. Discmania called it. That feels great. That might be a thrower. I do like Firebirds. That one might have to cycle into the bag at some point. Ooh, oh sweet. I did get a big putt. I did get a big putt Wysocki big putt stamp on there. White disc, silver stamp. That's so cool. What is this? Is that a leopard? It is. It's a star leopard, 165 grams. Oh man, that's gonna be great. I love throwing. I throw a lot of FDs up at this elevation, and the leopard's right in there too. This will be a little bit more understable, lighter weight. You can throw them high in the air, and they'll turn over and just glide forever. They're much more T-bird like up at my elevation than what you guys are at sea level are used to. That's sweet. Man, I wanted one of those stamps. So, I don't know. That's a pretty good box. I've been having fun, and I liked it. A fair chunk of that money is going directly to Ricky. I like supporting people directly if I can. Ricky seems like a good dude. So, if you didn't know about that, check out his website and consider signing up for even just 1 month. You can cancel it or whatever. You don't have to let that thing roll, but you might get some really cool custom stuff. Sorry that drug on. If you've made it all the way through the end, then I definitely appreciate you watching. I tried to put all the best information right at the front of the video, so within the first 5 minutes, that if you need to come back and watch it, everything should be front loaded there. You get the flight chart and the seeing them fly and everything. I tried to bang through that pretty fast before I got into my long-winded intro or whatever. I hate when people do that at the beginning, so I tried to get to the good stuff up front. And if you have any suggestions for how you could see kind of this review process or this layout grow and get better, feel free to let me know. I'm open to ideas, and I'd like to say also to give me an idea for any disc you'd like to see me review, but I don't know, with the injury I've got right now and all the other discs I've got stacked up, it's going to take me a little bit of a while to get through them, and I'm definitely trying, at least for now, to stick with the competitors to destroyers, really staying in that 12 to 13 speed range, which is such a great one. A lot of advanced and better players really have a good spot for those discs in their bags, so that's what I'm trying to stick with for now. But anyways, appreciate it. Thanks for watching.